There comes a point in every life when you realize something undeniable. The greatest battles you will ever fight will not be against other people. They will be against yourself. Your doubts, your fears, your limitations. And in those moments it becomes clear, your mind is not just an instrument. It is not just a tool. It is your greatest asset. Every invention, every skyscraper, every revolution, every fortune ever built began as nothing more than a thought. Before Edison lit the night, before Carnegie forged steel into empires, before Jobs held the future in the palm of his hand, each one of them first won the battle inside their mind. Because the mind is the workshop of destiny. It can create miracles, or it can chain you to mediocrity. It can be your liberator or your prison guard. The question is, who's in control? Most people spend their lives letting the outside world dictate the inside one. A single word of criticism and their confidence collapses. A minor setback and they abandon the dream. They allow the noise of others to silence the voice within. But here is the truth. Your external world is nothing but a reflection of your internal one. If you want to change your results, you must first change your mind. Think of the greats, Abraham Lincoln, who endured loss after loss before he ever won an election. Henry Ford, who was laughed out of boardrooms before he put the world on wheels. Walt Disney, who was told he lacked imagination before he built an empire of dreams. What separated them from the millions who quit? It wasn't luck. It wasn't connections. It wasn't even talent. It was the strength of the mind, a refusal to let doubt control them, a relentless belief in the vision they carried inside. You see, wealth, success, freedom, these are never first built in banks or factories or offices. They are built in the mind. The fortunes of the world are nothing more than materialized ideas, and your mind holds the same power, the power to turn thought into reality. But here is the danger. Most people never train their minds. They spend years in school, but never learn discipline of thought. They learn formulas, but not focus. They master memorization, but not imagination. And so their greatest asset lies dormant, unsharpened, unfocused, underutilized. They carry around the power to design a life of greatness, but because they never learn to master their mind, they live and die as prisoners of circumstance. But you, listening now, must understand, discipline of the mind is discipline of destiny. Control your thoughts, and you control your outcomes. Guard your beliefs, and you guard your future. What you allow in your mind will always become what you hold in your hands. That is not philosophy. That is fact. Think back on your life. Every decision you made, good or bad, was born from a thought you accepted as true. Every limit you feel right now began as a single seed of belief planted in your mind. And every possibility you dream of is already waiting for you, the moment you believe it enough to act. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul." But what he meant was deeper than poetry. He meant that the helm of the ship is your mind, that no storm, no enemy, no circumstance can sink you, if you refuse to surrender your belief. Because your mind is the factory of wealth, the birthplace of resilience, the fountain of innovation. Everything else, money, health, relationships, power, is just an extension of how you use it. And here is where so many go wrong. They treat the mind as if it is fixed, as if it is unchangeable. They say, "I'm just not smart enough. I wasn't born with it. I could never do that." And in speaking those words, they make it true. But history does not belong to the gifted. It belongs to the determined. It belongs to those who refuse to accept the limits others placed on them. It belongs to those who discovered that genius is not inherited, it is cultivated. And that cultivation begins in the silence of your thoughts. Every morning when you wake up, you are standing in front of the greatest workshop on earth. Your mind. What will you build today? Doubt, excuses, fear? Or vision, courage, and action? Understand this. The world will try to program you. Advertisers, critics, peers, even family. They will fill your mind with reasons why you can't. But the truly great, the Lincolns, the Fords, the Edisons, learn to program themselves. They chose what thoughts to accept, what beliefs to nurture, what vision to hold on to until it became reality. And that is your task. To stop living on borrowed beliefs and start choosing your own. To stop allowing circumstance to dictate your worth and start deciding it yourself. Because your mind is your greatest asset, and the moment you take control of it, your entire life changes. If the mind is your greatest asset, then belief is the currency that multiplies it. You can have all the talent in the world, all the knowledge, all the opportunity. But without belief, it dies in your hands. Because belief is the spark that ignites action. Belief is the unseen force that turns hesitation into courage, fear into faith, and ideas into reality. Consider the Wright brothers. 2 bicycle mechanics with no degree in engineering, no wealth, no permission from the world to dream of flying. Yet, when every expert declared flight impossible, they chose belief over doubt. They crashed, they bled, they failed, but they believed. And because they believed long enough, strong enough, consistently enough, humanity learned to soar. That is the power of belief. It takes the invisible and makes it inevitable. But belief is not a wish. It is not hope. Belief is a decision you reinforce with discipline. It is forged by the thoughts you allow to live in your mind and the actions you repeat day after day. When you say, "I can," you must back it with action, otherwise your mind will call it a lie. When you say, "It is possible," you must prove it by moving, otherwise doubt will consume you. The mind respects consistency. Feed it with belief and action, and it will compound your confidence until nothing seems impossible. And belief leads to clarity. Most people wander through life unclear of what they want. They chase distraction after distraction, opportunity after opportunity, never committing to one vision with all their heart. And because their mind has no target, it scatters its energy into 1,000 meaningless directions. But clarity is the great amplifier. A clear mind, focused on a definite purpose, becomes unstoppable. Napoleon Hill called it a definiteness of purpose. Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men of his age, said it was the secret behind every fortune. Think of it like sunlight. Unfocused, it warms the skin. Focused through a magnifying glass, it can set fire to steel. That is the difference between a life of mediocrity and a life of greatness. One drifts. The other burns with clarity. Ask yourself, what is my definite purpose? Not what do I think is realistic. Not what society tells me I should want. Not what others believe I deserve. What is the vision that sets my soul on fire? What is the dream that, if I gave myself fully to it, could transform not only my life but the lives of millions? Clarity demands courage. Because the moment you declare your purpose, the world will test it. Distractions will multiply. Doubts will scream. People will laugh. But that is how you know your vision is worthy. It attracts resistance. And yet, with clarity comes direction. You may not know every step. You may not see every detail. But you will know the next step. And that is enough. Step by step, the path reveals itself, and the impossible becomes inevitable. But clarity without discipline is still powerless. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and destiny. It is the ability to do what must be done, whether you feel like it or not. And if your mind is your greatest asset, discipline is the tool that sharpens it. Look at Thomas Edison. 10,000 failed experiments before the light bulb worked. Imagine the discipline required to continue when the world was mocking you, when results were nowhere to be seen. That is the kind of discipline that separates the dreamers from the achievers. Or think of athletes who rise before dawn, repeating the same motions thousands of times, training their bodies and their minds into instruments of excellence. That is not motivation. That is discipline. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is eternal. Discipline transforms belief into reality. It tells your mind, "This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I will achieve, no matter how long it takes." And here is the truth. Success is rarely dramatic. It is built in silence, in the unseen hours of discipline that the world never claps for. But one day, that discipline reveals itself as mastery. One day, that invisible grind becomes visible greatness. And the disciplined mind becomes untouchable. Because once you have discipline, you are no longer a slave to moods or emotions or distractions. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like it?" You simply do it because it is who you are. Belief gives you the strength to begin. Clarity gives you the direction to follow. Discipline gives you the consistency to finish. Together, they transform your mind into the most powerful asset you will ever own. But there is more. For even the most disciplined, the most focused, the most believing mind will face storms. Failure, rejection, betrayal, loss. These are not signs you are on the wrong path. They are the unavoidable tolls on the road to greatness. And this is where resilience is born. Resilience is the muscle of the mind that is only built when life dares to test you. Every dream worth chasing will break you before it builds you. The storms are not punishments. They are preparation. Because success without resilience is fragile. It crumbles at the first sign of pressure. But success forged in adversity is unshakable. Abraham Lincoln failed in business, lost elections, battled deep depression, and buried more than one child before becoming one of the greatest leaders in history. His resilience was not gifted. It was forged in the fire of pain. Every defeat carved his mind into steel. Every loss taught him compassion. Every failure deepened his strength. Or look at Walt Disney, fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Bankrupted after his first studio collapsed. Rejected hundreds of times when he pitched the idea of Disneyland. Today, his vision has touched billions. What made the difference? Resilience. The ability to rise again and again when the world said, "Stay down." Resilience is not avoiding the fall. It is refusing to remain on the ground. It is standing up one more time than you are knocked down. And every time you rise, your mind learns, "I am unbreakable." But resilience alone is not enough. The mind must also be adaptable. Because the world does not stand still. Technology changes. Markets shift. People evolve. And those who cling rigidly to yesterday's strategies are swept aside by tomorrow's reality. Henry Ford once said, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." He did not cling to the past. He adapted to the future, and in doing so, he transformed the world of transportation forever. Adaptability is the mind's ability to see beyond the obvious, to pivot when the plan collapses, to evolve when the old way no longer works. It is flexibility without losing focus. It is changing your methods while protecting your vision. Too many people confuse adaptability with inconsistency. They abandon their dreams because the road is hard. That is not adaptability. That is surrender. True adaptability says, the vision remains, but the strategy can change. A resilient mind refuses to break. An adaptable mind refuses to become outdated. And when you combine them, you become unstoppable. But to fuel resilience and adaptability, you need gratitude. Because gratitude shifts the lens through which your mind interprets reality. Most people see obstacles as curses. The grateful mind sees them as opportunities. Most people see failure as the end. The grateful mind sees it as instruction. Gratitude does not mean pretending life is easy. It means recognizing the gift hidden within the struggle. It means saying, "This pain is shaping me. This loss is teaching me. This challenge is preparing me." Andrew Carnegie credited his fortune not to luck, but to every man and mentor who challenged him, opposed him, and sharpened him. He was grateful not just for allies, but for adversaries, because he understood they were all part of his refinement. Gratitude frees the mind from bitterness and replaces it with power. A bitter mind cannot create greatness. It is trapped in what went wrong. A grateful mind, however, sees even the darkest storm as soil for new growth. So when life tests you, and it will, stand resilient, adapt wisely, and remain grateful. Because these three forces together make your mind indestructible. But let us go deeper. Because the mind is not just about resilience, or clarity, or belief. The mind is also an architect. It creates the world you experience, whether you are aware of it or not. You are living today inside the blueprint of the thoughts you planted yesterday. And you will live tomorrow inside the blueprint of the thoughts you plant today. That is why your mind is your greatest asset. It is both the seed and the soil. It is both the architect and the builder. What you allow into it, through words, through images, through focus, will eventually become the house you live in. If you fill it with fear, you will live in prisons of hesitation. If you fill it with doubt, you will live in a world of limitations. If you fill it with anger, you will live in cages of bitterness. But if you fill it with vision, you will live in possibility. If you fill it with faith, you will live in expansion. If you fill it with discipline, you will live in mastery. Your outer world is nothing but a reflection of your inner world. Change your mind, and you change your life.